Welcome to today's lunchtime devotion. Today's host we have Jessica Kildee.
That was Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And I'm your host, Jessica Kildee. Welcome to today's episode. I'm not very fancy right now, obviously, because it's nice outside, and that means we're going to be outside doing some good work. Today, I'm sharing today because I had a word that came to me yesterday during service, kind of over and over, but I didn't want to interrupt my husband, the good wife way. I didn't want to interrupt him, and I couldn't find a good way to do it. So today I realized it was for today's lunch devotion. It wasn't for yesterday. Perfect. Yesterday, during service, we've been talking about the story of Ruth and Boaz, and we talked about Boaz recognizing Ruth, her integrity, seeing who she was, and then Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, recognizing, hey, Boaz is the family redeemer. Just lots of recognizing happening. And what kept coming to me was just, are we recognizing who God really is? How he's a part of everything around us and who we are ourselves. And like I said, that word recognize kept coming to me, but I couldn't fit it in. And today, in my reading, I was reading Luke 24, which is the resurrection. It's after Jesus has died, and he reappears. And of course, it talks about recognition. So everything kind of clicked for me today. So what hit me is not the empty tomb, not the end where they're saying wait for the Holy Spirit, but this walk that the couple followers of Jesus are on. And they're talking, this is in Luke 24:13, they're walking to Jerusalem, they're walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. And they're talking just about everything that's happened with Jesus dying on the cross and what they're going to do with that because they've devoted their lives to him, following him now. And it says, as they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came and began walking with them. And I have this Jesus Bible version of it, and there's these little circles on the pages every so often that have thoughts to think about or pondering questions. And this one asks, after Jesus rose from the dead, some of his closest friends didn't seem to recognize him right away. Why? Why do we think that is? And right here, it's as they say, as they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came and began walking with them. Verse 16 says, but God, there's that but God again, but God kept them from recognizing him. So it's not like they were just doodly-hoo. God actually had clouded their vision from being able to recognize him. So he says, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, they stop. It says they stopped short, sadness written across their faces. You must be the only one who hasn't heard what's been happening. So it makes me think of my father-in-law, actually. Jesus basically says this line to get them to tell the whole story of what's been happening, right? My father-in-law will do that where he pretends he doesn't know about something, like Dutch Blitz. I don't know how to play that game. And then you explain all the rules only to have him beat you because he knew the whole time. Jesus obviously knows exactly what's happened. He was the one who died on the cross. But they go through and explain everything, and that's when Jesus calls them fools. And because they should have seen, he had told them what was about to happen. And he walks them through all the writings of Moses and the prophets, and they have this great time walking. And so they get to where they're going, and Jesus acts like he's going to keep going. But they beg him to stay. They've had a great time listening to everything and having this talk the whole time. And so he decides to, he'll have supper with them. So he goes home with them to eat, and it says, as they sat down, He took the bread and he blessed it. Then he broke it and he gave it to them. And in that moment, as he's handing the bread, suddenly it says their eyes were opened and they recognized him. The moment they recognized him, he disappeared. And they look at each other and they say, "Didn't our hearts burn within us as he talked to us and explained the scriptures?" And they go home and they tell the disciples, of course, that he really has risen. And Jesus appears to everyone after that, and it says they stand there in awe and disbelief, filled with joy and wonder, as he asks, "Do you have anything to eat?" And they hand him a fish, and here he is, alive again, eating physical food. So what really just sticks out at me today, that I think we all need to just stop and realize, is that God is really there right in the midst of us, and many times we don't see it. Whether it's busyness and taking the time to stop and recognize him, or whatever situation it is you're in, he's right there with you. He's the open door that's there. And it's not as if he's hidden for you to find. So if you aren't seeing him in whatever situation you're in, seek him, because he's right there on the other side of the door, in the middle of everything you're dealing with. Let's recognize him in every part of our lives, because there is no part that he hasn't perfectly placed, that he uses for your good, that he didn't create for his glory. So take a moment to recognize and carry that with you through everything you do. Let's recognize who God is and who we are because of him. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Have a great day.